Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Wise. Today we are going to look at the next topic, that is the QGD. We discussed QGD before and we are looking at the Cambridge Springs variation, the line which we started in the last lecture. So let's get to the position quickly. D4, D5, C4, E6, Knight C3, Knight F6, both are trying to control the center. Bishop G5, white puts attack on the D5 pawn, threatens to take CD, ED, BF6. So black has two ways here. Black plays the main move, ND7. Other possibility is BE7. White cannot take the pawn, which I have of course told you in the previous lesson. So white usually was with the move NF3, E3 is also possible. Now the D pawn is attacked. So black plays C6 and white goes E3. So the basic point in the Cambridge Springs variation is the characteristic of the move Queen A5. Okay, Queen comes to A5, puts pressure on the C3 knight. The knight spin is gone, so the knight is trying to come to E4. So here there are around 7 moves which we should consider, out of which we saw BD3 last time. BD3 loses badly here. After BD3, black takes DC, BC4, NE4, creating a double attack on G5 and C3. Today we will look at other moves. Let's start with the worst ones and then we will reach the main moves. So BE2 is another option which is equally bad. After BE2 comes Knight E4. Now DC will allow white to play BF6. So first Knight E4, creating attack on the C3 knight, and now if QB3 is played, QB3 comes up time and again, supporting both the C3 knight and the C4 pawn. But then comes Knight G5, Knight G5 and DC5. And we see that QB3 was blunder. If white would have played QC2, it would have been better. Now Bishop C4, then Queen G5 was for free. Let's say white would have played QC2, then we would have got this position. Still, now knight is hanging, knight would have gone back and black would play B5, protecting the pawn on C4. Development wise, white is slightly ahead. See, knight, knight, queen and bishop, okay? And black has only 2. But this pawn on C4 is somewhat annoying and black is about to complete his development soon. He can go BD6, castle, king will be safe. And white's pieces are not very active. So white is not able to generate enough play. This knight is already pinned now. This knight going to G5 will not work in many cases because after knight G5 he has to worry about B4. Queen can attack the knight. Okay. So this position is clearly better for black. We noted that two obvious moves BD3 and BE2 are not working. Let's look at other obvious moves also. Next is Rook C1. This is the most common move in normal Queen's Gambit. White often wants to take CD and get control of the C5. This is the most natural square for the rook. Generally, in most lines of Queen's Gambit, white goes QC2, Rook C1, BD3, putting pressure with queen and bishop on the king side, and after CD he wants to use the C5. So this is a very natural setup and a very natural move, but again comes NE4. So this NE4 move is troublesome time and again. This time, let's see. White knows. Now I will not discuss every time. Knight G5, DC4. That is happening all the time. So what white will do? White will come to mind. He will save his bishop to H4 or F4. F4 looks slightly logical, controlling towards the center. So he saves the bishop, and here simply Knight C3. See, BB4 can allow QB3. Okay. So simply Knight C3. Now if Rook takes C3, then BB4. The Rook would get pinned. And after the only move BC3, simply taking queen into A2 is just great because see, C4 is attacked, and if we try to harass the queen by Rook A1, then queen B2, and now no Rook B1 because of QC3 check, and we will see that black will be in a winning position. So maybe we will have to play CD. After CD there will be ED, opening the bishop, and we can see that black's position is absolutely fine. Bishop can go to E7, castle, knight F6, develop the bishop to G4. Black already has the A passer. While developing this bishop, we have to be careful about the move Rook B1 when b7 might be hanging. But first, white has to worry about the c3 pawn now. So we can say this position is also clearly better for black. Let's go to the next most obvious proof, that is QC2. QC2 another standard move and fails badly. Again knight e4 attacking the bishop, but this time the c3 knight is protected very well. So the bishop will just move and it looks like nothing much is happening on c3. But there is a small tactic. b4, the knight is pinned and the only way to avoid damage on c3 is the move rook c1. And after rook c1 what has happened, we see simply black can take queen into a2, because if bishop c3 bc, then queen supports a2. So first queen into a2, and now we see that simply like any move like be2 or bd3, white is trying to catch up with his development. Then black can take bishop c3 bc, queen a2, queen c2, rook c2. Let's say be2, and we can take bishop c3 bc, queen c2, rook c2, and this knight is very well off in the position, and black position we can say is very good. Black can do castle, okay, and soon try to move this knight. At some point he can consider the move dc4 and place the other knight from b6 to d5. So and we can play the pawn to b5. But while playing b5, we have to be very careful. Knight d5 can make the c6 pawn weak. b5 can be an anti-positional move in many cases. But this position we can say is very good. See, whatever lines I am showing you are all based on my experience, and whatever I have learned, I have used them. I am suggesting those lines. So I follow minimum computer analysis. Mostly see these lessons are for players those who are new to the game. Those who are playing since say 1 year or 2 years. I suggest we should not use too much computer analysis. We should follow what is there in the book and develop our own calculation, own ways of evaluation, rather than follow the computer. So most of the analysis will be very much based on practical play, and I am not using too much computer analysis. In this line I am not using any computer analysis at all. Okay, so here we see that white is not able to play most of the natural moves. We saw bishop d3, bishop e2, rook c1, q c2. 4 moves we have covered here. Now let's look at one more bad move, that is a3. This is very common. See, this is not found in any book because it's a blunder. But in my games, I have faced this move personally, and my students have also faced the move a3. It looks like white is stopping the move bb4, okay, by playing a3. But knight e4 again, okay. And now what is happening after the move b4? There are many ways black can play the move bishop into b4, ab4, qb4, and we see that the c3 knight will be taken. This has happened in my own game once. White bet rook c1, knight c3, and white thought that after qd2 he is able to pin the knight. Okay, but the knight moves to a2, and then soon my piece went back. After the move queen into b4, knight b4, rook b1, I simply played the move a5. And this position we can see that rook knight is blocking white's entry on the b5, and soon black will castle and improve his knight position on d7. The main plans in the middle game, we will see black always wants to play e5 to open the bishop. So one of the common plans which we will see is castle, rook e8 and playing e5. This is a very common plan. Okay. And to cd we don't want to take cd, we will generally take knight d5. So if this plan is not possible, then black will look at other ways. He can go knight b6, or he can do dc4, bc4, knight b6 and place the knight on d5. But trying to play e5 is a good option that opens the bishop. So now let's look at the main moves. First we have got the move cd5. Okay. So after cd5, what white is saying, doesn't want to keep his c4 pawn hanging, so that after bishop c4, dc, bishop c4, and e4 becomes a double attack. So he is dissolving the center. Normally black plays the move ed5, but since the queen and bishop are placed in the same line, black likes to use the move nd5 more often. Okay, so I am suggesting the move nd5, although ed5 is also good over there. Now c3 is attacked, and here many people don't realize that the only correct move is qd2. If qd2 is not played, then there will be serious problems. If queen c2 is played, then we have the same tactic, bb4, rook c1, then queen into a2. Again black has fought the pawn, okay, and he is able to trade the pieces by knight c3 or bishop c3, and then exchange the queens and have a passer in the ATM. What queen d2 does here is, after bb4, rook c1, this time the queen is not letting the bishop pin the knight, okay, because the queen itself is there, but it looks risky. Now what happens? Now we cannot do the move queen a2. Okay, so after queen a2, knight a2 will simply take win the piece bd2 and kd2. The piece would be lost. Here what I would suggest is, simplest black can do is go for the move e5. Then we should play the move castle, another simple alternative, and after the move bishop d3, now you can do e5, de5, knight c3, bc3, bishop a3, rook d1, and now just take knight into e5. After knight e5, queen e5, we can say that the position has roughly leveled up. After castle, we can do the move bishop f5, complete the development, and black is having an easy equal position. Okay, let's look at one more line in this itself. Here there is also the move rook c1 or qb3. Okay, so after rook c1, we have nc3, bc, and we can still take on a2. So rook c1 is mistake here. Let's look at the move qb3 now. qb3, then bb4. And this time what we will see, because of the queen's presence on this diagonal, the move e5 will start making more sense. Now see, after rook c1, this time the move e5 is very good. Again, those who don't want to give the pawn can play the move castle over here. But here e5 is very much different, because see, after ne5, de5, knight into c3, bc3, bishop a3, rook d1, black castles, and whatever is played next move, there will be bishop e6. And after bishop e6, a2 will come under fire. And if white tries to stop by bishop c4, then comes b5, bishop goes back to d3, and now first h6, forcing the bishop away to f4 or h4, and then he goes bishop e6. See, black's initiative has grown, white's king is in the center, and after the queen moves to c2 to keep the c3 protected, then b4, and we can easily see that black's play has become very solid and prominent. After cb4, bb4 check, queen takes a2, and black's a pawn will have lot of significance over there. Of course, this line looks little risky, but here I think this is very good idea, and we can definitely go for that. So note that after the move e5, many will say that de5 and simply the pawn is lost, but the knight square to c5 was guarded by the d4 pawn, and after knight c5 we see that there is immense pressure. Now queen has to leave the a2 pawn, and after move like qc2, simple queen into a2, and we can say that black position has already become somewhat better also. The knight is very strong, knight is about to land on either e4 or a4, put more pressure on the c3 knight, and soon some material will be, I think, gained by black. So this position is clearly better for black. After the move knight e5, de5, another simple suggestion instead of nc3 can be just castle first, waiting for him to play bishop to c4, because no one wants to get attacked by be6. So the threat is there now, nc3, bc, bishop a3 followed by be6. So if white plays bc4 over here, then we can use the same idea, knight c3, bc3, ba3, rook d1, b5, and we reach the similar position as we discussed in the previous line. There we played castle later. Here we, after the exchange, immediately played the move castle. So I think these positions are quite decent. At the next move now, bishop into f6, knight into f6. So what has happened here? This bishop has got traded for this knight actually, but white doesn't want to keep any tactics happening on the 5th rank, and now he takes c into d5. So usually we take e into d5. Now there is no bishop here, so there is no point in taking with nd5. Okay, so ed5, most logical move, opening the bishop, and there was no tactics available on the 5th rank, so that is our 4th rank anymore. So now white can simply develop, both will develop their pieces. So white goes bd3, black can go bd6, castle, and if we can play the move castle over here, castle re8 and e4. This is one of the standard plans. Knight wants to come to e4 and make the position roughly level. Okay, but here interesting move is bg4. Now this will put some pressure on the white position. Playing h3, bh5, g4 will not be very safe because of his king over here. Only problem that white can cause is with the move qb3. And here actually there are many things that black can do. One is qb6, allowing the trade on b6, but unnecessarily there is no need to take double pawns here. Although double pawns is not the problem, that position can be easily played. We can keep the threat of bf3. Right now bf3 can allow qb7, although even that is very interesting. bf3, qb7, castle, gf3. But after qc6, I don't believe that much in the black position. King is opened, but king h1, rook g1 is coming up quickly. So maybe white will be better over there. So black can just take his queen to c7, attacking h2 now. bf3, gf, bh2 is the threat. Only worry is the move knight e5. I think after be5, de5, qe5, this is one of the ways for black to equalize very easily. So what happens is after qb7, castle, queen into c6. This time there is a tactic because queen is keeping attack on the knight. Black just goes rook a b8 and b3 is impossible because of the move rook f c8 and winning the knight. Now see b3 blunder. Rook c8, queen attacked, queen moves anywhere, then queen into c3. So if I cannot play b3, then next move rook into b2 will be taken. There is no good way to protect b2, and look at the rook coming to c8. So excellent compensation. This knight wants to come to e4. There are ideas like qg5, bh3, bf3 over here. And for one pawn we can say that black is doing really good. In fact, he will get the pawn back very soon. Moves like na4 can allow something like bd7 and the b2 pawn would be taken immediately. So I feel that this position is indeed very good and black has equalized very easily. We are at the last move, that is the main line nd2. Idea is very simple. After the move dc4, which is very logical, looks like dc4, pawn is taken and queen attacks the bishop. White intends to get his knight to c4, but he has an intermezzo first. Here people also like the move bishop b4, which is considered, I think, one of the main moves. Which I am showing you is going to be simple, and we are not going to use any tricky lines or any computer analysis. We will play simple stuff which can lead us to roughly equal position. So this chapter is basically for players from anywhere from 1000 to 1600 rating. Okay, so d into c4. So white first plays bishop f6. Now he is avoiding the attack on his bishop, and after the move knight f6 now, knight comes to c4. So this is generally considered very good for white. Knights are placed strongly, queen has to retreat, queen goes to c7. But what I found here is if we can get the move e5, the position should equalize very easily. So black should not have the greed of the bishop pair here, because one of the bishop is bad. So what he should do instead is play bd6, surrender one of the bishops, and quickly try to play the move e5. Okay, so one of the main moves bishop is not committed to d3 quickly is rook c1 here, because he wants to use the presence of the rook and the black's queen on the same file. But still we will use the move bd6. We should surrender this bishop and try to play e5 quickly. Let's say after the move bd3, e5, knight d6, queen d6, d5, queen e5, castle, and we can easily say that black is about to equalize the game. Do note that we cannot play rook d8 immediately because of the threat of bh7. So first the bishop has to be moved. Bishop can come to e6 or f5. Both are good ideas. This bishop can be traded for this one, and then black can easily say that the position is equal. White is looking slightly better here. We can easily say that. So, but this I think is a very good option for black over here. The last main line for white, after the move nd6, qd6, white can go for the move bishop c4, which intends to create some problem after the move e5. So first, of course, black will castle, white castles, and here after e5, white wants to play the move d5. So what he is looking at, after the move cd5, nd5, nd5, qd5, if qd5, bd5 is played, that endgame can pose some problems. Although if we analyze that in too much detail, black can sack one pawn and try for a Royce rook endgame. Of course, no one is interested in going into that position directly. So black should play the move qe7 and try to hit the queen on d5. Right now white is looking very active, so black is going to play the move rook d8. So the most obvious move is rook d1, after which simply black can develop the bishop. You can play the bishop to f5, because queen into b7 is not possible. With the move qe7, we protected b7 and e5 both. Bishop is developed and now the rooks are connected. So black can try to either get the f rook to d8 or the a rook to d8, depending on how much pressure is there on f7 square. So this position we can say is roughly level. After the move bishop b3, we can go for the move rook a d8 or rook f d8. Both are playable, and we can say that the position is roughly level now. Another point, after the move bishop f5, it looks like f4 is causing some tactical trick, but there is an intermezzo bishop g4, first attacking the rook. Rook moves to e1 or f1, then just e into f, and the pressure is not there anymore. Okay, but at e3 is attacked. To do the move ef4, okay, because it didn't want queen e3 to go with check. And this position also we can say after the move be6 is absolutely equal. So after qe5, trying to create a pin here, we can just play rook e8, and after be6, qe6, qe6, re6, we can easily make out that this position should be fully level. After rook c7, we can hold this pawn by the move b6 and penetrate our rook to the 7th rank. We will have to keep the rook active, and black should be able to equalize the game very easily. Okay, so this was my analysis about the Cambridge Springs variation. This lesson was a bit long, but I thought to cover the whole thing in 2 parts only. Okay, I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.